Yo guys, it's Haunting Lime, welcome back to the channel. Before I get started with the showcase of Metagross in the Remix Cup, I want to say a big thank you for all the recent subscribers. My new goal is trying to hit 400 subscribers by the end of next month, so please guys, like the video, it really does help out. Share the video as well because, you know, I want to get more exposure. And yeah, I just want to start growing the channel and just start producing more quality content for you guys. But again, please, if you do like what you see, do support the channel by liking and subscribing, and let's get on with the video. Yo guys, it's Haunting Lime, welcome back to the channel. Today we're showcasing Shadow Metagross in the Remix Cup. So, I've got a Shadow Metagross built for the Ultra League, as well as the Master League, and now again I've built another one for the Great League. So, I checked out the simulations, and Metagross actually has quite a lot of play because this is a very heavy steel and charm meta in the Remix Cup, and it has a fairly good matchup against medicham and defense deoxys in the zero shield the Shadow Metagross does. So the idea of this team is to bait out all the shields by having Mew as the lead. Mew with flame charge and wild charge is really heavy hitting, and it kind of covers the medichams and the defense deoxys leaders that tend to be quite common, and also the jellicent leaders that are quite common. Metagross is basically in for the charmers, so as soon as your opponent goes into a charmer, you bring in your Metagross to fully farm it down, and then you have pretty much two back-to-back meteor mashes ready to throw at your opponent, which most likely will get a shield. So this team is heavily reliant on getting your opponent's shields, whether it's from Mew, therefore your Metagross has pretty much free access to beat down your opponents with the heavy hitting meteor mash, or vice versa, where your opponent switches out and then you can fully farm down something and then get your opponent's shields, and then Mew has pretty much free reign to throw wild charges at your opponent. So my opponent did swap out into his Wigglytuff pretty much straight away, and that gives me a good chance to fully farm this down. And now, as you can see, I've got tons of energy. I've got two meteor mashes ready. One will definitely get the shield, if not, you know, this first one, look at that. This is an XL Medicham, by the way, because a regular Medicham will take a lot more damage, and the second one is going to be more than enough to take it out. So you can see the true power of Metagross, especially in this cup, because there's so many charmers going around, so many steel types going around, because there's no Galarian Stunfisk or Azumarill. There's nothing really hard hitting that can really counter Metagross apart from like your sableyes and your Jellicents, which obviously I've got the hard counter in Mandibuzz, so the team, you know, works really well in that regards. Mew in the lead does tend to catch a lot of the Medichams and defense deoxys. If not, if they're in the back, then I've still also got the Mandibuzz in the back to kind of also deal with that. And again, my opponent switches out to a Charmer, so this is where Metagross shines. And because I was a little late to switch in, I'm actually going to have to shield up once. I'm almost able to take it out, but because Metagross is fairly squishy, especially in the Great League, my health is fairly low, so my opponent actually can't farm me down, which is fine. But now I've got this, again, got tons of energy to throw at my opponent, and he actually brings out a Gengar. So Gengar would have a really good matchup against Metagross into the psychic typing, but because I've got two ready, like I said before, this is going to get both shields, and when your opponent has zero shields, pretty much this team can just flourish even further. Having Mew, which is fairly tanky, and then having Mandibuzz as like the absolute tank, can actually do quite well. And like I said, if your Metagross gets countered or your Mew gets countered, you've got your hard counter in Mandibuzz to kind of cover up the team's weakness. The moveset on Mew is so versatile. You can pretty much hit anything with the wild charge once you boost up with flame charge and do so much damage with it. And in this case, my opponent actually has a Melmetal in the back. That's still fairly healthy. My Mew is still fairly strong, and this wild charge is more than enough to take it out. So I've started seeing more Melmetals in the cup. But, you know, they're not everywhere, and they're fairly squishy as well. So, I thought, you know, this is the last day of the Remix Cup. Why not, you know, showcase a really strong team that I came up with right at the end of it, that performed really well. Metagross hasn't been utilized the best in the Great League. It's really not got a place in the Great League, but in this Remix Cup, it actually has a good amount of play. And for some reason, my opponents weren't respecting the wild charges from Mew. I know Mew has the typical moveset of Surf and Wild Charge, so, you know, my opponent doesn't want to obviously get baited by using a shield, but I think against a Mew you should always shield the first move, because you just don't know, and it can one-shot you like it does with his Politoed. And because I know Mew had a lot of health there, I can pretty much survive it, and he loses his Politoed, and then he brings out a Meganium, and because I've built up so much energy, I'm going to throw this Flame Charge as well, so this should do quite a lot of damage. Obviously it wasn't boosted, so it's totally fine, but you know, I've got Mandibuzz as a hard grass counter as well. That's why Mandibuzz is so good in pretty much every team, because there's so many grasses flying around, there's so many psychics flying around, running around. It just hard counters all the ghosts, you know, the flying types, the fighting types to a certain degree, the psychics, and the grass types. So a really good, strong Pokemon for the scope. And like anything, my opponent obviously had energy, so he threw. I could have shielded, to be honest, but because I already know I've got this match in the bag, I decided to leave bolt shields for my Mandibuzz, because Mandibuzz is going to wall the Meganium, and because obviously Meganium has quite a lot of energy, I wanted to make sure this Mandibuzz I can save a shield for that. And my opponent does switch out into Meganium now, so this is get a little more dicey than I imagined, but you know, I had quite a lot of energy built on the Mandibuzz, and this area is almost enough to take it out. And I don't really know how much damage a Frenzy Plant will do. I know it hits hard to everything, even if it's resisted, but I decided to just kind of shield up, because I knew the defense deoxys wouldn't have anything, and it wouldn't have any more energy, because he used all his energy on my Mandibuzz previously with the Rock Slide. So the team just performs really, really well. I really enjoyed using it. You know, it was a hell of a lot of fun. Mew I always liked using. Finally have the moveset that I required after going through a bazillion charge TMs. But again, there's so many teams running defense deoxys in the lead. Mew has so much play because Shadow Claw is such a good move, and if you can actually boost your Shadow Claw's damage by throwing a Flame Charge, and the thing is, nothing that my opponent's going to throw is going to really threaten me, because Mew is quite bulky actually for the Great League. Not the bulkiest Pokemon around, but now that I'm going to get this Flame Charge off, I'm actually able to do extra damage with the Shadow Claws, and now I can just shield up once and fully commit to the farm down. And Mew with energy, like I said before, is super deadly. Obviously the aim of the game is to get your opponent's shields, and now Mew is stacked and definitely going to force some shields, even if it brings out something like a Mandibuzz or anything. He actually brings out defense. He actually brings out defense deoxys. No, he actually brings out bastiodon. So bastiodon is going to have to respect these two, because it is boosted. A Wild Charge still does a decent amount of damage. That most likely looks like it's an XL Bastiodon too. So I do get the first shield, totally fine. I'm happy to let my Mew go down, because I know Metagross actually has a good matchup against Bastiodon. The rock typing actually receives neutral damage from the bullet punches. So as you can see, I'm actually chunking away at the Bastiodon. So Bastiodon takes forever to get to his charge moves, and in that race to the charge move, you'll get to yours before your opponent does. And obviously bullet punch doing, you know, neutral damage, adding up, and also Meteor Mash will threaten it quite a lot. So in the end, he actually has a Mandibuzz in the back as well. So this is going to be quite close, because obviously Bastiodon is going to hard counter my Mandibuzz. Don't obviously want to see it, but because I was able to farm a bit extra before switching out, I was able to get the Mandibuzz lower than mine, so I should win the mirror match and be ready for a sack swap or a swap right at the time it comes up for my opponent, because obviously he wants to align his Bastiodon and do some extra damage to my Mandibuzz. So here I am obviously constantly overcharging, because I also want to have extra energy available. And this matchup, you actually want to go aerialist, because the foul play is resisted. And look, my opponent does go for the switch. Because I know he's going to do that, I automatically switch into my Metagross, and because shields are down, Metagross, well, his shield's not down, he's got one shield. I had quite a lot of energy already stored, and the first one gets, you know, the Bastion pretty much KOs it, and the second one gets the shield. My opponent obviously had to respect it, and actually a CMP tie, which is totally fine. So like I said again, you know, Meteor Mash is going to get your opponent's shields. That's the aim of the game. You know, I tried abusing Metagross's heavy attack and thinking, you know what, he's going to be a solid KO for most Pokemon, but most people actually shield the Meteor Mash because they're scared of that much damage, and that's why I like the team, because this team gets shields, and once shields are down, your Mew can go to town. That's what I'm probably call the video actually. You know, shields are down, Mew goes to town. But no, on to the next game. So I did play about 3 to 4 sets with this team, all positive sets. You know, Metagross really performing really well as like the core breaker for the team. Mew obviously is the star of the show, but the whole team just performs really well together because it covers each other's weaknesses. Again, the meta is quite, heavily reliant on charmers. Pretty much 99% of teams have one charmer in the back, and this is where I kind of messed up. So my opponent and my Mew have the same moveset, so I really should have stayed in and increase my own damage as well, rather than bringing in my Mandibuzz trying to catch the wild charge. My opponent just goes for a wild charge, trying to catch the flame charge, but my opponent actually goes for a wild charge, which is a heavy amount of damage, and thankfully I don't get taken out. But he actually has a Melmetal on the back, and Melmetal has a fairly good matchup against the Metagross and the Mandibuzz. So even though I have shielded, I'm trying to get to the next foul play. My opponent is counting and he throws exactly, and Mel actually wins the CMP tie, which is totally fine. This is going to be a pretty much a loss. I can come with Mew and try to farm down and get hidden energy, but he is going to force me to throw trying to force me to use a shield. I'm not going to use it because obviously Mew in the back is going to be pretty difficult, and he has a Vigoroth in the back. So yeah, regrowth would have been a big problem for the Metagross, even though, I could have got to my Meteor Mashes. If he's got shields, Meteor Mash ain't going to do that much damage, but, the Bullet Punches are adding up. This is one of the great things about Metagross. The damage does add up quite well with the Bullet Punches, and there I was like, you know what, he's probably going to bait me with Body Slam. He doesn't. He goes straight for the Bulldoze, which is fair play on him. That was probably the best way to win. So it was quite a close game. Could have played that bit better, but off to a 4-1 start, which is pretty good. As you can see, my ratings tanked quite a bit. I had some bad days using different teams or trying out different teams, fun teams for the cup, and went down to about 2650. But all is good now. Before the Ultra League starts very shortly, I am sitting around 2780 again, so I am pretty much ready for the Legend climb, and my teams are ready. Like, my anti-XL Pokemon teams are ready, so there should be quite a lot of showcases of anti-XL Pokemon teams and how I reach Legend. But hopefully, I'm not just jinxing myself. Hopefully we get there soon, and I've got my sets still saved up for today. I'm going to utilize all my sets as well. And again, my opponent brings out a Charmer, switch straight in, and Metagross is pretty much ready to take it out completely. And because you get so much farm on Metagross, this first Meteor Mash will get a shield, and yep, brings out again. There's another Gengar as well, but sadly I didn't have that much energy to actually go for a second Meteor Mash, because the Ground Ball doesn't actually have as much health as let's say a Wigglytuff does. So Gengar versus obviously Mandibuzz. Like I said, Mandibuzz is in the back as a super hard counter for anything that my first two Pokemon are weak against, and because there's not like fighting types are around, but Mandibuzz is so thick, it has the aerialist coverage. There's not much that can deal too much damage apart from Charmers, hence why you have your Flame Charge and your Meteor Mash covers. So this is a pretty good game actually. So we're up against a regular Victory Bell. So when I was playing this matchup, I thought it was just a standard Shadow Victory Bell, but it wasn't. So my opponent actually doesn't shield this because he's expecting a Surf or a Wild Charge bait. But look at that damage from Flame Charge. It wasn't enough to KO, obviously, but I'm able to fully farm it down still and have a little bit of energy. And now I'm fully expecting a Bastiodon to come in, which is totally fine because, like I said, you can actually he brings out a Jirachi, and then he does like a weird switch into his Toxicroak, expecting to catch like a Surf or something, and it actually is a Wild Charge, a boosted Wild Charge, almost takes him out. So here I'll just switch out into my Mandibuzz, because I know Mandibuzz needs a little bit of energy, is going to be more than enough to take out this Jirachi, and Jirachi obviously being Psychic typing doesn't do well against a Dark typing Dark type Pokemon, even if it has energy stored. So yeah, a pretty easy win there. My opponent obviously hard switched and locked himself into a bad matchup. So this is one of those things, most of the games are rock paper scissors, so this is quite an interesting matchup. So Shadow Claw versus Shadow Claw, Haunter doing quite a lot of damage, but Haunter is fairly squishy, so even though he gets to the Shadow Punch, I'm fully committed to the farm down here because I want to get loads and loads of energy. It's fine, I'll go down 2 shields. I could have actually gone a Flame Charge and boosted up my Shadow Claw's damage, but I decided not to because I wanted to kind of keep the energy for later, and I knew I could outpace this Haunter to basically I knew I could KO the Haunter before it could KO me. So right now I'm going straight for the Wild Charge, trying to do as much damage as possible. He actually has an little Ninetales, which is totally fine. The second one most likely will get the shield. I could have gone for a Flame Charge initially. I didn't really know how much energy I had if I could go for back-to-back, but yeah, the Charm takes me out. But like I said, I've got my Metagross in the back to fully just take out the yellow Ninetales. Yeah, you see that? It got deleted pretty much. And there's Medicham. Medicham, like I said, has a good matchup against Metagross, but in Zero Shield, Metagross actually wins. He has to respect the Meteor Mash, shields are down. So here, I should have automatically switched into Mandibuzz because my opponent is on his last Pokemon and he goes for Power Punch, and I don't really want to let him farm down. I thought I could actually get to Meteor Mash before he got to the next move, but this is where it gets a little too dicey. My opponent is boosted obviously in Power Punch, and he actually has, it does quite a lot of damage actually. It does a lot more damage than I was expecting, so here I'm getting scared. So even though I'm building up quite a lot of energy, my opponent's counters are starting to whittle away. I go for one Aerial Ace, second one I just about get to it, it's the CMP tie. So I'm thinking, okay, this ice punch is going to take me out. Thankfully it just about doesn't. So Mandibuzz, hanging in there with a sliver of health. That's where the bulk comes in. This team needs that bulk because Metagross isn't bulky at all, and I'm able to take out the medicham. So well played to my opponent there. So again guys, if you are enjoying these videos, please like the channel, please like the video, please share it, and also subscribe to the channel. We're doing actually quite well already. We're starting to grow the channel a lot more quicker than when we first started. So let's get that exposure out there, and guys, if you do enjoy the content, please, I appreciate the support. And on to this next game. So Bastiodon for this team can be a problem because obviously Bastiodon in the lead is pretty thick. He fully covers my Mandibuzz, and Metagross has a good matchup against him if he's lined up correctly. But if I switch into Metagross now, my opponent's can just hard counter me as well. So all I can do right now is actually just go for the wild charges because I want to lower my defenses, and then my opponent can actually take me out quicker. And now my opponent does have quite a lot of energy built, but he obviously can't have a back-to-back move stored, can only have one stored. So all I have to do is shield here, and my opponent is staying in. So that gives me ample time to farm down this Bastiodon before he gets to a second move. And look, I've got 1.5 Meteor Mashes ready, and he brings out a Drifblim. So this is pretty good. This is definitely going to get a shield. Drifblim obviously is a hard counter, but Drifblim has to respect the Meteor Mash. It'll do a lot of damage. So I'll switch out into my Mandibuzz because I know I have a pretty good matchup, and I don't want my Metagross to take extra damage than he needs to. And obviously I don't want my opponent to like try to bait a shadow ball. It's actually just an icy wind, but my opponent actually has a Toxic Rock in the back, which I'm thinking, okay, this is a winnable game now. So Mandibuzz obviously has good coverage for both the Toxic Rock and Drifblim, but I have to watch out for the Sludge Bombs, which will do quite a lot of damage, and my opponent will actually go for Sludge Bomb here. So I get a successful shield, and I can just about get race to my opponent. And here I'm thinking, okay, he's got another Sludge Bomb ready. This is going to take me out, but thankfully it's just a Mud Bomb. So this is where I misplay. I should have committed to the Aerial Ace, and then switched out into a Metagross as soon as the Toxic Rock was down, because I would have most likely beat my opponent to a fast move. Because now even though I beat up the Toxic Rock with a Meteor Mash, I think I would have been able to farm it down without throwing a move. My opponent has energy ready to throw here. He was energy dry when he left because he threw Icy Wind. So had I just been taken out the Toxic Rock with my Mandibuzz, it would have been fine, and then Metagross would have been totally good to take it out. So on to the last game. So lost the game over there, guys. Just ignore my daughter, she's trying to get in. But on to the last game. So this is going to be pretty much a loss, because I want to go and see to her. So thank you for watching, guys, and hopefully see you guys for the next few Ultra League games. Thank you, bye.